I'm 17 years old, and for the past 4 months, my world has been nothing but 4 walls, a sneaky computer, and unreasonable restrictions from the mother I once thought was my safe haven. My best friend, who I consider family, was just diagnosed with stage 2 cancer. While I desperately searched for a hug, a late-night conversation to ease the pain, my mom coldly rejected me with a knife-sharp remark. I started to wonder, am I wrong for wanting to leave this painful, toxic family relationship? And if you've ever been in a situation where your loved ones forbid you from seeking comfort when your world is falling apart, maybe you'll understand me better than anyone else. I know that for many people, having parents control things like schoolwork or curfew is nothing new. Everyone has been scolded or reprimanded at least once for their grades or curfew. But for me, it's been an actual prison, where every basic freedom of a 17-year-old child is stripped away. For the past 4 months, my mother has completely grounded me. No phone, no seeing friends, no leaving the house except for school, and even the short comfort messages from my best friend became a luxury. The only thing connecting me to the world was the old computer that my mom doesn't know I still hide. And if she ever found out, I know I'd pay for it with painful beatings that could tear my skin. For others, friends might just be casual relationships, nice to have but not essential. But for me, they are family, my only support system, the only place I can escape to from this house full of yelling and toxic control. My 2 best friends and I have been inseparable since middle school. We share everything, dreams, secrets, late nights talking about a movie or some silly thing that happened at school. And when I've been locked inside these 4 walls, they're the only source of comfort that makes me feel like I still have a part of the world out there. But just because I didn't get the grades my mom wanted in one subject, she took everything from me. The punishment wasn't just being grounded, it was total control. She monitored every gesture, every word, even when I picked up the phone or when I dared to laugh watching a movie on TV. I've been beaten just for forgetting to open the door at the exact moment my mom came home from work. I've been locked in my room, had all my belongings taken away, just for arguing once about a test. And that fear grew bigger every day, eating away at me. Every morning, I had to remind myself, just make it through one more day. But when the bad news about my best friend's cancer came, everything seemed to completely fall apart. I thought, at least in that moment, my mom would give me some freedom, let me reach out to the other friend in our trio for comfort. To spend the night together, hold each other and cry, share the fears of being 17 in the face of illness and loss. But she coldly responded with a cruel remark, "No way. You can call her for 10 minutes. That's it." In that moment, I realized that maybe I'd never really lived at all in this house. And I started to wonder if wanting to cut ties with this relationship was asking for too much. I've heard people say that in the hardest times, friendship is what keeps a person standing strong amidst life's storms. For me, the 3 of us were the world. My 2 best friends and I, those who, over the years, had been with me through every skipped class to eat snacks, every night sneaking into a room to whisper about the joys and sorrows at home, our silly first loves, or our fears about the future. Without them, I felt like I had lost a part of my soul. And then, at the moment when I was the weakest, when I was suffocating under my mom's control, bad news hit. One of my 2 best friends was diagnosed with stage 2 non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The news came from my mom herself, as if she were talking about something from a news story, not about someone I considered family. I still remember the cold, indifferent look on her face when she casually said, "Your friend has cancer." No comforting words, no hug, not even a shred of sympathy. The feeling in that moment was worse than any physical pain. I sat there in a daze for hours, trying to choke down the panic rising in my throat. All I could think about was one thing. I just wanted to see the other friend in our trio, to hold each other, to find some warmth in the middle of this despair. I mustered the courage to ask my mom for something I had never dared to before, to let me stay over at my friend's house for a night. Not to go out, not to escape, but just to hold the hand of my remaining best friend, to reminisce about the good old days, about the beautiful memories we had shared. I thought, at least in this situation, She would soften, but no, the answer was a sharp, outright shout. No way. You can call her for 10 minutes. That's it. In that moment, I understood that to my mom, I and the relationships I cherished meant nothing. She never valued my friendship, nor did she care about the pain or hurt I was going through. To her, the illness of someone else, even someone as close as my best friend, was just a trivial matter. And I began to realize that I might not be able to stay forever in a house where pain and loneliness were seen as normal. After my mom's cold response, I was almost numb. In reality, deep inside, I still held on to a tiny glimmer of hope that she would change. That she would understand the pain and helplessness I was feeling in that moment. But it turns out, I was too naive. It wasn't the first time my mom had dismissed my feelings. But it was the first time I clearly realized that, to her, I was nothing more than an object she owned, with the right to decide everything, from my thoughts to the smallest of relationships. My sadness over my best friend's illness, or my need to share and seek comfort, meant nothing to her. From childhood to now, I've always lived under the harsh rules my mom set. She never asked me what I wanted, what I liked, or how I felt. I remember one time when I got a bad grade on a test. She dragged me into the middle of the house and beat me with an electric wire. Just because she thought I was bringing shame to the family. Or if I accidentally forgot to open the door at the right time when she came home from work. I had to endure cruel insults, along with painful beatings. Even the smallest of mistakes could land me under house arrest for weeks. I used to think that if I just behaved well, if I tried to please her, everything would eventually be okay. But no matter how hard I tried, she always found a reason to control and impose her will. This situation with my best friend was the last straw. At the moment I needed sharing the most. My mom not only ignored me but also forbade me from contacting anyone. I felt like I was being mentally suffocated, when even a phone call longer than 10 minutes with my best friend was considered too much. The house I once called home had now become a prison, and the woman I once called my mother had become the one who hurt me the most. I began to realize that even blood relations could be cold and cruel to this extent. And from that moment on, the thought of escape started to form in my mind. The thought that maybe I couldn't continue living like this anymore. In the days that followed, I became a shadow in my own home. Every sound, every glance from my mom became heavier and more suffocating than ever. I no longer laughed, nor did I care about anything except sitting in front of the old computer screen, the only thing left that gave me a little bit of freedom and connection to the outside world. Every night, I silently logged into the old group chat, reading through every conversation with my two best friends, looking at the photos of us laughing carelessly, and then the tears would fall without anyone knowing. I knew I was slowly burning out, not just because of the worry for my best friend battling that cruel disease, but also because of the feeling of being disregarded and confined by my own flesh and blood. My mom's silence, indifference, and unreasonable restrictions made me feel like I was being worn down little by little. I began staying up all night, tossing and turning with hundreds of questions in my mind. Why'd I have to live like this? Am I being too selfish for wanting to live authentically with my emotions? Why is my pain and my friendship being so easily dismissed? I used to think that no matter how strict my mom was, she was still my mom. That deep down, she loved and cared for me in her own way. But this time, I couldn't make excuses for her anymore. No mother who truly loves her child would be willing to beat, humiliate, and strip away every right to comfort and sharing when her child is suffering the most. The more I thought about it, the more isolated I felt. Outsiders might look at me and think I was a rebellious child, disobeying my mother, ungrateful, but they didn't live in this house. They didn't endure the daily emotional abuse like I did. The wounds on my skin would eventually heal, but the scars on my soul, I knew, would never disappear. I felt like I was slowly losing myself, losing trust in family, and losing hope in the kindness of adults. And when the pain became too much to bear, I began to think of a choice I'd never dared to consider before: cutting ties. Completely severing myself from that woman, from this house, and from the so-called mother-child bond that only existed in name. Finally, I realized that I couldn't continue living in a world full of torment and pain like this. I had once hoped that if I just tried to be obedient and make my mom happy, I would be loved and understood. But all I received in return was coldness, imposition, and harsh control. My mom never understood that I also have feelings, that I need love and sharing. She never understood that the wounds in my heart can't heal just because I'm more obedient or because I get higher grades. The tears I silently shed, the nights I stayed awake worrying about my best friend and myself, none of it seemed to matter to her. I began to feel that with each passing day, I was like a puppet in her hands. No voice, no power to decide, no freedom, and I started to doubt my mom's true feelings for me. Did she really love me? Or was it a possessive kind of love, where she only cared about me doing what she wanted and meeting the standards she set? Her gestures and words now made me no longer recognize her as the mother I once loved deeply. In a moment of desperation, I thought about cutting ties with her, not because I didn't love her anymore, but because I couldn't continue living in an environment where love and understanding were erased. I couldn't live like a shadow in my own home. I couldn't keep enduring this emotional abuse. And a part of me felt that if I didn't leave, I would never have the chance to truly live as myself. The urge to escape grew stronger by the day. I didn't know where to start, but I knew that if I didn't act, I would forever be a victim in my own story. These thoughts made me feel lost, confused, and trapped in a choice that wasn't easy. I couldn't reject my mom, but I also couldn't continue living in this suffocating environment of emotional pain. Was I doing the right thing? What would the price be if I chose to cut ties with the woman who had raised me? But perhaps, this is the only step for me to find myself again, to be free to love and live true to my own feelings.